Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at New Jersey Digest. If you're looking for the latest in food and culture in our state, you have to check these guys out. Their website and social media is filled with top-tier curation like their coveted guides on restaurants and places to explore in New Jersey. Visit them at thedigestonline.com or on Instagram at NJdigest. Murphy, Schiller, and Wilkes is formed with a simple purpose in mind, serving as the one-stop shop for the legal needs of developers, lenders, and others in the commercial real estate industry. Based in Newark, the firm's attorneys represent clients in the most complex real estate transactions and land development proceedings, as well as property taxation, environmental and real estate litigation matters, and in the acquisition, sale, and leasing of all real estate asset types throughout the country. Their attorneys have broad private and public sector experience coming from top national law firms and high-level governmental positions. Through the development of individualized client-focused strategies, their team works tirelessly to create a blueprint for success and advance their clients' interests in every matter. To learn more, head to murphyllp.com or give them a call at 973-877-6984.
Just a little under an hour until I hit the stage for another show. Driving on this road feels like forever.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Can. We are here in Windsor, New Jersey at Harvest Drop with Oliver Gubenko. Oliver, welcome to the show.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, so good to be here. So excited. It's a really cool space, and I appreciate you having me in here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, me too.
Excellent.
So can you just give us like a quick rundown of like where we are? Because this is our first time kind of in like a warehouse almost format.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about what this place is.
Sure. So we're here at Harvest Drop. I started this business in 2015, nearly 8 years ago. June 1st will be 8 years. I started by walking door to door to restaurants, meeting chefs, saying I have this idea. I want to work with a number of different farms throughout New Jersey, and got my first few customers. Quit my job, and the rest is history. At first, I started by literally selling food out of my bedroom. Just calling chefs. Like literally sitting in bed, and then I'd pick it up in my car. And basically, what was happening at the time was I started the business with nothing, literally with $3,000. So I couldn't afford a truck or a warehouse or any place to store food, so I would literally take an order from a chef, run down to the few farms that we were working with, pick it up, and then deliver it. And everyone was saying that it was like super fresh. It was really nice, and it kind of clicked that if I don't take inventory, it's going to force me to put across a really fresh product and a really beautiful product from the farms. So we're sitting in a warehouse right now where we do not keep any inventory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting use of space. But let's learn a little bit more about you, and then we'll take us all the way up to that story you were just telling us, like going around in your car, because I find that very interesting.
Right.
And almost kind of just like a bootleg operation at the start, which I love. So you told me off mic before we started recording that you're from Jersey originally, so you're a Jersey guy. Whereabouts? Tell me all that kind of stuff.
So I grew up in Hawthorne, New Jersey. You said you're familiar, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Cool. Yeah, not most people aren't, even
true.
when you're like from that area.
Right.
So North Jersey, went to Hawthorne High School. Then I went to Rutgers. I've never lived anywhere besides New Jersey.
Love that.
Yeah,
I have, which makes me almost like a fraud, but it's okay.
Are you originally from New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey originally.
There you go. So you can claim it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey. I've always lived in New Jersey. There was a point, like it's funny, like before starting this business, before like really figuring out what my career is going to be, I wanted to leave New Jersey.
Okay.
I was looking for jobs elsewhere. San Francisco sounded pretty exciting.
Yep.
And once I started a business that pretty much revolves around the state of New Jersey, I started to like really appreciate what we have, especially from like a food point of view. So it all kind of like came full circle where, there was a point where like I wasn't even sure if I was going to stay in New Jersey.
Right.
And now like I built an entire life around,
being
Garden
in New
State,
Jersey.
Baby.
There
exactly.
You go. Okay, so what I find interesting is, like, so you're from Jersey originally. I find a lot of this interesting. But do you have like a background in food or farming or anything like that, or just what were you doing? Like, what was young Oliver into?
Well, that's a good question too. So no background in food whatsoever. I've literally, I think. Okay, so I like to tell people I've never been on a farm in my life before starting this business. That's sort of the truth. Because the real truth is that the only farm I've ever been on before starting this business, I remember in like 3rd or 4th grade, we went on a school class trip, and we went to a farm. Right?
Yeah.
Besides that, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I'd never been on a farm in my life before starting this business. Prior to Harvest Drop, my background was in finance. I was probably about 7 or 8 years down that track. And I've always known that I wanted to be a business owner, like since I was a kid. And I just felt like I just needed a change of pace. I needed to do something. I needed to build something of my own, which drove me to do this. As a kid, I was really into video games. I was really into basketball, video games, computers. I would build computers. That was like technically my first business.
Okay.
I started building computers when like a Dell XPS was like $3,000, and like you could build the same one. You just buy all the parts and you build it with like a bootleg copy of Windows for like $1,200.
Yeah.
You know, so I was doing that in high school. Just doing all sorts of stuff. Trying different things. Then at Rutgers, I studied finance. I was super into it. Worked in finance for 7 years prior to Harvest Drop, and then, here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting also, like, with a lot of, I would imagine, and I guess this is technically a business for me because I do make money off of it, but like when you're starting a business, did you have to go through like different business ideas to find one that finally stuck? Or was it one that you found where like this one was the one that was just kind of like almost like, holy shit, this worked first time?
No, well, yes. So yes and no, right? So like I would say like the year leading up to Harvest Drop, like I was going crazy. Yeah. Like I needed a change. Like I was.
Like, what are you doing when you're going? Where were you?
So I was at a firm called Heights and Woodland.
Okay.
Right.
In Jersey or
Jersey, and they have 2 offices, one in Jersey, one in New York.
Yep.
But so I was working at a small firm, and I simply I didn't want to progress down that track. I was interviewing for other jobs that were like similar in vein, similar but different kind of thing. None of them really excited me. They were just another job to me.
Yeah.
Right. And I just felt like compelled that like I have to build something. I have to pour my heart into something. I just want to be consumed by something. And so like at the time, sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
The first few businesses, or like if you tried like went out of what you were doing originally, right, and then this was like the first thing you tried.
So, and at the time, that's exactly it. So like at the time, like I was just throwing different ideas to a wall, and my best friend Dan, like I would text him like maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. What do you think of this idea? What if we did this? What if we did that? Like I was just spitballing ideas, and it's like the only thing I could think of. And I remember I was at work, and I texted Dan. This is like February 19th of 2015, right? And I was like, yo, what if we aggregate food from a bunch of different farms and sell it to households, right? Direct to consumer. That was the original idea.
Yeah.
Right? I was going to go direct to consumer. And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. And like, we were talking about it a little bit. And at that point I was like, that's a really good, I like started getting fixated on this idea of like aggregating from a bunch of local farms. Cause personally at the time I was eating really healthy. I was really health conscious. I was personally looking for fresh local foods. I had a CSA at the time, which, are you familiar with what
I don't know what that is.
So it's a crop share from a farm.
Okay. So
at the beginning of the season, around this time of year, in March per se, right, you'd you'd pay a farm $700 or $800, and every week of that season you have a share of their crop. Right?
Okay.
I had a farm share with a farm near Morristown, and it was good, but there was like problems with it. Like you don't get to pick what you get.
Like whatever they got, you're getting.
Whatever they got, you're getting.
Yeah.
If you go away that week, which you tend to do during the summer,
Right.
you lose that week's share because you already paid for it.
Yep.
You have to like pick it up on like a random Wednesday evening on some guy's doorstep. There was just issues. And so I'm like, all right, this is exactly what I want. I want like fresh local foods, and I want like really nice meats and things like that. And I remember I went on GoDaddy.com to get a domain, and like the reason that this company's called Harvest Shop is because the domain was $14, right? Like that's
Yeah, I love those domains.
Yeah,
So
it was $14.
Yeah.
I bought it, and like at the time, what was happening too, like the trend in naming, right, was Grubhub, right, DoorDash.
Yeah, right.
Right, it was always 2 words.
Yeah.
Right, and that was a big trend in like 2014, 2015. And so I had Harvest Drop,
Yeah.
and like that's what we do. We drop, some harvest. Right. And so I bought that domain, and, at first I started building out a site focused on consumer delivery, right? And then basically I was at a party one night. This was a Friday night. I was at a party, and I was telling a friend of a friend this whole idea. This idea that I'm gonna work with a bunch of farms, and I'm gonna sell it to homes like throughout New Jersey.
Yeah.
And he's like, "That's pretty interesting. Why don't you see if chefs are interested?" I was like, "That's a really good idea."
Right. Yeah. People that actually know how to cook.
Yeah, and people that value good ingredients,
Right.
and I literally, that was a Friday night. That next morning, Saturday, I drove to Montclair, and I was just familiar with the food scene in Montclair.
Yep.
So I parked at the top of Bloomfield Ave. I walked into my first place, Bel Giovanni's on Bloomfield Ave, like old school Italian deli.
Yeah.
And dude, I stumbled. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, I want to sell produce from local, and like the guy's like, kid, get lost, like get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Can I say that, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're good. It's a podcast about New Jersey and people from New Jersey, so they're bound to have a couple of those per episode.
And so he's like, get the fuck out of here. And so I went down the street. There's a Starbucks on Church. I got a cup of coffee, calmed down, and then I hit the ground running, man. I went to Samba. Ilson was my first customer. I went in there. I was like, hey, Ilson, like, I used to eat lunch here a bunch. I know that ingredients are super important to you. I'm looking to start a business where I work with a bunch of different farms. Is that something you'd be interested in? He's like, yeah, that sounds wonderful. Call me when you call me when you open. I was like, Ilson, you're gonna be the first person I call.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly, those were my exact words. I'm like, Ilson, you're gonna be the first person I call.
Yeah.
And he was, and I called them. This is now June 1st, 2015. I went into operation. I'm still one-man show by myself.
Yeah.
And I call Ilson. I'm like, hey, Ilson, I don't know if you remember, but 2 months ago I came in, and today I opened up my business. Would you like to place an order? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I was like completely surprised. I was like shaking.
Yeah.
I'm like, I grab a pen and paper. I'm like shaking to put it, like write his order down, and that was how it first started.
Yeah. So simultaneously while you're like deciding, like you had this like get this idea to do direct to consumer, then do the to chefs. Mm-hmm. I think at the same time you must also be trying to like find other local farms that could supply those ingredients,
was,
right?
Honestly, the hardest part.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding supply was the hardest part, because what happens, so like I walked door to door, a couple weekends because I was still working full time.
Yeah.
And so on the weekends I would walk door to door. And I did that, and I understood that, like, yes, there's people looking for local food, and there is demand here.
Right.
Then I remember I took a Friday off of work, right? And my goal was to find farms to work with, right? And I just like Googled like New Jersey farm, and I started calling down that list of all the farms that I could find on Google in New Jersey. Nobody picked up the phone, right? And the few people, I remember one guy that I got a hold of, like I told him, I was like, you know, this is what I'm trying to do. And he was like, well, if you want to buy some food, just come down to the farm and buy it. And I'm like, oh man, this isn't going to work.
This is not going good, yeah.
This is not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I was going crazy. This is like a few week period, like maybe a 2-week period where I'm going a little crazy. I feel like I have demand, but I have no supply. I have nothing to sell them. I have no connections into farms.
Yeah.
And again, a friend of mine, Joshua, who knew what I was trying to do, right? He sends me a message during the day. This was a Wednesday. He sends me a message and he says to me, he's like, hey, I just saw this poster. There's a New Jersey Farm Bureau meeting in Hackettstown, New Jersey at 6 p.m. tonight. I run out of work a little early. I run over there and I meet Reich, who's the president of the NJ Farm Bureau. And I say to Reich, I'm like, listen, I'm trying to start this business. I have chefs who are interested in buying from local farmers. Can I please get up in front of your audience for 2 minutes, right? And Reich looks at me. He didn't want to do it. I remember the look on his face, but he's like, all right, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I got up. There was about 150 farmers in the room that night. And I say to them, I have chefs who are interested in buying your food. If you're interested in selling to me, I'll be in the back. Please come see me. Right, and I waited in the back, and I met our first 3 producers that night. A few people came up to me and were like, hey, yeah, we've got some food.
Yeah.
We can work something out, you know, and those were my first 3 producers. And from there, it was just, now we work with, I don't know, like 120, 130 different producers.
Wow.
Yeah, throughout Jersey, PA, and New York.
Yeah.
Because, like, it just kind of snowballs in the sense that, like, you know, like, a chef will be like, I remember, for example, like one of the early ways I would find producers is a chef would say like, hey, I'm putting shishitos on my menu, you know, this summer. Can you find some?
Yeah.
And I'd start calling around, you know, looking for shishitos.
Right.
You know, and then I'd have a relationship with that farm. And then, you know, I'd look for this product and somebody would find us. And so it snowballed into like, yeah, it's somewhere between like 120, 130 producers at this point.
That's crazy. And
yeah.
I wonder, like, at the beginning, I think it's so crazy because, like, I grew up in Pequannock, but then moved to Sparta, like, right before high school. So there's obviously a lot of farms up that way.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, crazy to think that, you know, like you just said, you're calling down this list of farms and, like, nobody's answering the phone, and then almost a reluctance to sell what they're growing to someone if it's not directly from them to someone else. You know what I mean? And so it's like, well, why not use, like, that service?
Yeah, and it's hard because you know what it is as an intermediary, right? Because I'm between chefs and farmers.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about it, like, chefs are on the line, they're cooking, they're working with their hands. They're not sitting at a computer checking their phone. Like,
right.
It is hard to get chefs on the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing as farmers.
Yeah.
They're out in the field. They might not even have service. You know where they're at. They're out in the field. Their hands are dirty. They're getting busy. They're not sitting on a computer checking their phone.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I'm between 2 sets of people that don't answer their phone. You know? So it makes my life a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting. And do you also think that, like, because I think, I don't know when it started, but the whole, like, real farm to table push, I feel like has been a relatively recent thing. Do you think you kind of helped, maybe not start it, but, like, ride that wave almost?
Yes, I rode the coattails.
Yeah.
I rode the coattails. Starting this business, I knew that the word local was a buzzword. I knew that chefs wanted it. I knew that, you know, they wanted to feature it on their menus. The truth is, the reality of what I do is that by getting food local, by not keeping it in inventory, by truly getting my customers exceptionally fresh product, right, I'm getting them really beautiful ingredients.
Yeah.
Right? As a means of being able to pick it up today and have it delivered tomorrow. Right? That's like so for example, a little while ago. This is actually a while ago, in a format similar to this, I was asked, what do you consider local, right? And because like the USDA defines as 400 miles, right? That's a very strict definition. I consider it, if I can get it harvested today, right? If I can get it harvested and picked up today and into a kitchen delivered tomorrow, that's local to me.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I consider local, and it's my ability now to get my customers like really beautiful product.
Yeah, and then out of, you said 120 to 150 producers,
right?
Like you're able to do that with all of them right now.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's what the only stuff that we keep, so behind us is our warehouse, right? So if we were to go in there right now, it's completely empty. What we'd see in there's a basketball hoop. There's a basketball hoop.
Like Michael Scott kind of deal.
Yeah, there's a Michael Scott basketball hoop back there. And then there's dry goods. Honey, jams, things that sit on a shelf, no problem.
Yeah.
Other than that, like we're not sitting on any fresh foods at the moment.
Yeah.
It's all in and out.
The logistics of that have to be off the charts.
It is pretty. Yes, I mean I have 5 trucks circling New Jersey all week. Like New Jersey, like to call it not even New Jersey, but just the tri-state. Like I have 5 trucks circling the tri-state all week, between picking up product, delivering it. Like it is a logistical. Ironically, it's like it's almost like a logistical company as opposed to I wouldn't even say that, but it is a logistical challenge. Yeah, it certainly is.
Because because if you're trying to pick one thing up from one producer to get it to X number of restaurants, chefs, whatever that need that one product, like that's got to be trying to figure out like where they're going, how it's getting there, all that kind of stuff. I would imagine is kind of crazy.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Awesome. So we'll take our first break, or our only break actually, because we're gonna do 2 segments this episode. But we're gonna take our break, and then we'll come back and we're gonna learn more about pick it up from there and what we're doing.
Awesome.
So this is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Ham. We're here at Harvest Drop in Windsor, New Jersey, with Oliver Gubenko. We'll be right back. The Mayo Performing Arts Center is the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown, New Jersey. MPAC presents over 200 events annually and is home to an innovative children's arts education program. To see MPAC's upcoming schedule of world-class concerts, stand-up comedy, family shows, and more, head to mayoarts.org or just click the link in our show notes. Bored of going to the same park? Want to try a new local adventure? Well, then check out NJspots.com, your home for finding a new spot to discover right here in New Jersey. With dozens of maps to check out, local hiking spots, family-friendly places, and seasonal suggestions, NJspots is waiting for you to find somewhere new to explore. That's NJspots.com. All right, we're back for our second and final segment of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here in Windsor, New Jersey at Harvest Drop with Oliver Gubenko. Mm-hmm. So in the first segment, we learned a little bit about your background. We learned about what Harvest Drop is and kind of those early days of like how you guys got started, essentially. Right. Up to kind of almost including how many producers you're working with now. Mm-hmm. But I do want to go back. This is a little callback to the first segment where we talked about how like the initial part of you starting this business was walking door to door to restaurants and farms, I would imagine too, and then basically like delivering stuff out of your car. Right. Like describe that process to me, because like if you tell someone you have a business and then you show up with like a bunch of radishes in your trunk.
That's the thing, you can't do that. right? So what you do instead is you park around the corner. From the restaurant, right?
Smart.
And then, because like not only is it coming out of your trunk, but your trunk is not refrigerated. Right?
Yes, also
so that's a big no.
Yeah.
And so I would park, and I remember there was this one day where I was taking a delivery to the Madison in Hoboken, and Dave over there, he's like looking outside. He's like, "Where's your truck?" I was like, "Oh, Dave, it's around the corner. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, Hoboken's hard to park.
I was like, there was no parking outside. It's around the corner, but don't worry, I got this. I'll just
smart.
Bring everything in. But yeah, I was parking around the corner, and then I've done some crazy things, man, to start this business. Like the next thing that I was doing was I was renting vans from Ryder. Okay. Right. So I would rent a van, and I would specifically ask them for no divider between the front and the back. right? And the reason I did that was because I needed to blast the air conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, to keep everything cold.
Right.
And this is like middle of July.
You're like in like a fucking parka.
Dude, that's exactly it. I remember going into Pig and Prince, right, in Montclair, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt in the middle of July. And Mike's like, dude, why are you wearing a sweatshirt? I was like, Mike, I'm trying to keep your food cold.
Yeah.
You know, but like, dude, I would do things like that. Like it went from my car to like renting vans and renting whatever. Then in 2016, I bought our first truck, and that was I mean just massive for us, you know.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and now I mean we have 5 trucks on the road. It's still very much a small company. I'm like building it very slowly and methodically. But it's crazy. It's just remarkable to look back, because we're talking about 7.5, almost 8 years time, which is like not that much time.
Yeah.
But it's just remarkable to see like all the growth and change and progress that you can make in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. Outside of like, obviously I'm sure the truck was a major milestone for you, like buying one finally.
Yeah.
To like, and not even just for like logistical purposes or refrigeration purposes, but just like
pride.
Yeah,
dude.
Exactly.
That, and like I'll show you the trucks later. But like, I mean, dude, I like everything. Like it's decaled nice. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah, I see it driving around Morristown. I live in Morristown, but driving around Morristown all the time.
Dude, like like I made it look, and like even like our logo, like I'm biased.
Yeah, right. I think it's a great logo.
I love our logo.
Yeah.
And like this kid Joe Strassler did this logo for like $90.
That's amazing.
Like,
great deal.
Like amazing deal. It's like one of my. It's literally on my arm right here. But. Like dude, I have so much pride in this business. Like that's even so that cabinet behind you is new. Like Sam just built that today. It's just a cabinet, but I was so excited like when she finished building it today because it just makes my business a little bit better. We now have a little kitchen cabinet.
Right.
And I just take so much pride in like even the small stuff in what we do.
Yeah. Were there like other milestones over the course of growing the business where you were like this is a significant moment that you could look at and be like, this is where we really started turning a corner from being a guy in his car to being like a legit
There's
business?
So many of those. I mean, there's a few to point to. So I would say for any small business, like your first hire, right? Your first hire is very, very special, right? When you go from like it being just you to it being a little bit bigger than just you, that's a really special feeling. And what happens is that like, so my first hire, and this is a bit of a story.
Love stories here.
So my first hire was a kid named Brian Crevolt, right? I hired Brian in a Starbucks because I was still out of my bedroom. And so I interviewed him at a Starbucks, and at the time, he worked in a warehouse overnight, and I couldn't afford to pay him what he was currently making. He was making overtime that I could not afford overtime at the moment. On paper, he should not have taken the job, right? But I told him, I was like, Brian, listen, this is a fetus of a company, right? There's a fetus of a company. There's no guarantee that this works, but I'm really fucking good at what I do, right? And that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Right? He quit his job right there, told me that he was starting 2 days from that interview. And he did. He quit a job that was better than the one I was offering, right, to come join me. And I would tell you that Brian gave me just 150% every single day. Like he treated it like it was his company. Truthfully speaking, like I wouldn't have this, where we're sitting right now. I just wouldn't have this without Brian. Probably one of the most special people I've ever met in my entire life. Last year, this is now 2021, so a year and a half ago, he was in a motorcycle accident, right? And Brian didn't make it. It sent a shockwave throughout the company throughout. I mean, I still chefs will tell me that like their entire kitchen was crying that day.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a major loss for us. I shut down the business for 2 weeks. You know, it was just a shockwave, you know. And this was his skateboard.
Okay.
Right. That's why it's a skateboard. I can't even ollie, you know, so I don't deserve,
Yeah.
I don't deserve to have a skateboard on my forearm.
Yeah.
But he was a skater, and, one year for his birthday, we got him a Harvest drop deck. And so he would ride around doing ollies, kick flips, all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is my memorial to him. But that first hire, that person that's in the trenches with you, that person that is just like just as committed to this thing, that sees the same vision that you see, right? That is a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Right? When you go from being alone to having somebody in the trenches with you, that's a moment. There was also like the other moment that I could recall in terms of just pivotal moments. I remember like, I don't know, like it never fazed me, like, because like in the beginning, especially in food, people tell you, oh, there's no money in produce, or like the margins are super thin, or restaurants don't pay their bills, or like you hear all these things that like are meant to like detract you from starting the particular business that I did, right? And a bunch of people were warning me these things, and you know, like I feel like it just never stopped. I always knew I can make this business work. I always knew, like, put it this way, like even like our accounts receivable, like when restaurants owe us money, right? Like even walking into COVID, we had $250,000 in receivables, meaning that like I had $250,000 sitting in restaurants that were just mandated to shut down.
Yeah.
Right. Every single chef, right? Every single restaurant paid their bills with like that year.
Wow.
You know, within some took a little bit longer, some put it on their credit card, some people called saying like, hey, I'm gonna pay this off, but give me a little bit more time.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, and I've never taken a credit app. You know, there's not a single chef out there that we've ever asked for a credit app. Like we're the only purveyor or distributor that doesn't take a credit app, you know?
Yeah.
And like it's just never an issue. And then like same thing as like, you know, the margins in food, and like, you know, like I really feel like if you're good at what you do, you know, the money comes.
Yeah.
Right? It's a means of all the effort. And I remember there was this like pivotal moment where it was probably around or closer to year 3, maybe like around 2.5, closer to 3 years in, where, you know, that first year, like we lost money. Second year, scraped.
Yeah.
You know, like if I worked at McDonald's, I would have made more money that year.
Right.
You know, kind of thing. But then that third year, you could start seeing the business financially sustain itself. And I just knew, and I was really starting to like run out of money, you know, like, you know, it was like, it was getting close, you know, but I could see it, and it just never fazed me. Like, I don't know why, like in hindsight, it should have.
Well, of course.
In hindsight, it should have.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, I wasn't worried.
Yeah.
I just knew whatever I was doing was gonna work.
Yeah, because it seems to me, and like I mean, I wasn't there, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm gonna toot your horn, so maybe you'll like it. But it seems to me that just like the idea that it's almost like you have these you talked about before with like how chefs work, how farmers work, and how they're just kind of like in their own little world. But then all of a sudden, someone like you comes along, and you're like bridging that gap, and you're making it more of like an intimate type thing, where like you respect both parties involved, and then you know how they operate, you meet them where they are, and then you like make it happen that way. I think like obviously that, you know, there's obviously dollars and cents that goes into any business, but just having something like that and that relationship with them, I think kind of like transcends the whole process. You know what I mean?
It truly does. And like in a perfect, honestly, in a perfect world, I wouldn't exist. Right. In a perfect world, all the chefs would go to the farms, or all the farms would go to the chefs, right? In a perfect world, that's what would happen. But like you need an intermediary to facilitate everything, to aggregate everything, to have aggravate everything. Yeah, you do not want to.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's the
right?
opposite
You
of
do
what
want
we're
to
saying.
aggregate.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you know, that's my role. Like, I don't grow it.
Yep.
I don't cook it. I hold on to it for 18 hours at most.
Yeah.
You know, all I do is find a home for it.
Yeah.
You know.
And so at the beginning, when it was mostly, I would imagine, just produce.
It was, yes.
It's more than that though now, right?
Dude, it's way more. And so so in the beginning, so yeah, especially that very first year, 2015, it was just produce, right? And basic stuff like zucchinis, tomatoes, kale, that kind of thing. And that first Thanksgiving came along, right? And season was over. I had nothing to sell. And so actually I went to Portugal for about a month, right? And I came back, and our first year-round product was eggs, right? Huge, it's, to this day, a really important category to me, right? Really important category. First it was eggs. A fresh egg, super important to a lot of chefs, especially in deeper applications. Fresh pastas, custards, even like a simple like egg on a burger, super important. Eggs, then microgreens, mushrooms, chicken, beef, pork, veal, lamb, charcuterie, cheeses. So now, what happens is that like it's been like every year I look for more product that we can sell, not only seasonally, right? Because that's our bread and butter, you know, seasonal stuff, but like throughout the year, you know, like the chicken, eggs, mushroom, beef, pork, you know, all that stuff that we can get across, just in terms of exceptional quality, right? And also like the other thing that I haven't really pointed out, but like because I don't maintain inventory, right? I don't have massive refrigeration, right? So behind us, there's literally, behind this wall, there's 3 reach-in Home Depot refrigerators. Yeah. Like one of those, right? There's 3 of those. Other than that, I have no refrigeration. Our electric bill here is like $200 a month.
Which is crazy.
I have no warehouse staff.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I have zero waste.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not throwing food in the garbage. Like, so like for example, Cisco, publicly traded company, largest food distributor in the world, right? Yeah. If you look at their P&L, right, because they are a publicly traded company, you can look at their P&L. If you look at their P&L, approximately 3%, 3 points of revenue, 3% of revenue is called shrink. It's a line item on their P&L. It's called shrink. Shrink meaning waste. Anything that goes in the garbage is called shrink, right? 3%. And we're talking about 3% on billions of dollars. That's a lot of food being thrown out. Yeah. You know, and 3% for any business is pretty substantial. For sure. Right? Big or small. And so what happens as a result of not taking inventory, not only do I get my customers a super fresh product, but we can pass across a normal price point. Yeah. Because we don't have the same overhead, you know, that a massive distributor would. Sure. Right? Or that a traditional, not even massive, just a traditional distributor would. Yeah. You know, so that's kind of the name of the game, especially in with any product, but like, you know, quality and price, if you can get those two across, like, you're in business. Yeah, absolutely. You know?
So tell me, how many restaurants and all that are you up to now?
We work
about.
Yeah, we work with about closer to 300. Okay. Maybe a little bit less than 300. Yeah. Individual restaurants.
And those are in Jersey, New York?
Jersey, so, yeah, mostly in New Jersey. We're open to Bucks County, and then we're opening up for Philadelphia, you know, this coming spring. Gotcha. Yeah, so right now those 300 are in New Jersey, and then call it the eastern border of Pennsylvania. Yeah. Yeah.
And like I would imagine too, like on the specifically on the probably the producer side, like working with like local farmers and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, is there like almost like a checklist of things that people have to like to make sure that it's quality stuff, or you just you know that they get good stuff?
Yeah. You know what you look for when you look for good food. you look for good people, and then you find good food. That's generally my rule of thumb. Like, when I look for the right product at this point, like, I have what I just call my 3 Ps. It sounds kind of lame.
I love it. Yeah.
People, product, and price.
Yeah.
Right? In that particular order. If it's the right person, like, we can make magic happen. Right? Plus, if they've got the right product, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then if it's priced well, I mean, that's a home run. If you got all 3 of those, right, it's just a home run. And so now when I look for, I mean, you know what's tough now, and this is just something that's incredibly difficult at this point, is that, like, we have a very wide range we have a pretty wide range of product at this point, right? And it's becoming increasingly more difficult for me to find the new impressive, you know.
Yeah, what's like the next thing?
What's the next thing?
Yeah.
You know, and like I'll be honest with you, like maybe in the last like 6 to 8 months, the last year or so, like I've had a few products that didn't work as well as I wanted them to.
Yeah.
Or they're kind of like kind of a reach, you know. So it is, because like we have just like throughout the year now, like last year we listed a little bit more than 2,000 different SKUs, like 2,000 different items.
Yeah.
You know, like some only available for a couple weeks at a time, you know, things like that. But that's a pretty wide range of product, right?
Yeah.
2,000 items. And now I'm having a hard time like finding like that next,
the 2000 first.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Right? Yeah.
exactly. Because we have like our bases covered.
Sure.
Right. So that's becoming increasingly difficult. But you know, I think like in terms of like finding the right product, finding the right producer, a lot of it comes down to what do people need in general? Right. If there's no ubiquity, if nobody needs something and nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Right. If there's no necessity, it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
And you know, and then there's the people involved, you know, and then there's the price, of course.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. So before we start getting close to like the end of this episode, because this has been awesome, just like the whole story of like building this whole thing out is really incredible. But I was going through your website earlier today, and because you mentioned at the beginning, like your first thought was to sell directly to the consumer, but you still have that option on your site for people to buy stuff directly from you.
You're exactly right. So it kind of came full circle, and I always thought this was so ironic because back in 2020, right? Back in 2020, that first weekend of shutdown, right? Because we saw sales tank like 90%, right? Because all my business at that point is restaurants.
Right.
And I'm like sitting there just like watching like just my world fall apart.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh my God, what do we do? And I remember like one of our chefs she's now retired, Jennifer Freeman, she called me. She's like, hey, Oliver, hope you've been well. I know I'm not in a restaurant anymore, but with us being at home right now, can I place an order for my house? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll, you know, A, you're a good friend, and B, like, I'll take any order that comes through the door right now.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? And dude, literally, Ro, who you met earlier, Ro and I, we opened up home delivery that first week of shutdown. It took us 3 days, and basically, like, we had to call all of our producers and say, like, hey, we need retail sizes, you know, because everything was wholesale.
Sure.
We need retail size packaging. We changed the website. We put together some basic marketing. That Saturday, we posted one thing on Instagram. And as a result of that one post, 30,000 people created a heart. Yeah, it was crazy. There was a point where, dude, like, I don't know if you noticed, but there's no phone in here. We disconnected the phone lines. There's no phone. We literally disconnected the phone line that day, and have never.
Because you're just blowing up.
Because it just the phone would not stop ringing. Like,
yeah. Well, because people, they needed stuff.
Yeah, I had to I rented in trucks. You know, I rented in trucks. I mean, I remember that first week of home delivery, there was a point where we did not go home for 3 days. Just like scrambling to fill all these orders, and it was mayhem. And because like a few newspapers like picked it up,
right.
And then also what happened that week was JWoww from the Jersey Shore got an order, right? And then she posted that she got an order, and then that like continued like the snowball,
yeah.
And so that it all just like went a little crazy that week. But what's cool is that home delivery, saved us during COVID, and the coolest part is that like we've had this like die hard customer base, that like we have literally people that have ordered every single week, for their homes since the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
We're going on like almost 3 years now.
That's crazy.
Right. And like even like a couple, this is maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but one of our home customers who orders every single week, like she does not skip a week, right? But she sent us an email. She's like, hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that unfortunately I'm going on vacation next week and I won't be able to place an order. And I'm like, Dottie, go enjoy your vacation. Don't feel bad for us.
It's gonna be fine.
But she like
I love that her name's Dottie.
Yeah. And I was like, it's just so funny that like that's how like like the type of customer base that we've built. And even though like, I mean, the world is, back to normal in most ways, like people are back to the grocery store, like we're sitting here without masks.
Yeah.
It's cool that like people continue to order, whereas it seems like most other distributors who turned home delivery have abandoned the home delivery.
Right.
We've maintained it, and it's just like it also works for the chef too, because like before home delivery it was whole cases only, right?
Yeah.
So like if a chef, for example, wanted cilantro, he'd have to buy a case of 12 bunches of cilantro, which is for anybody a lot of cilantro,
right?
Unless you're a Mexican restaurant,
that's exactly. It's just a lot of cilantro.
It's a lot of cilantro, man. And so as a result, I didn't sell a lot of cilantro.
Yeah.
But now that we sell a single bunch of cilantro and a case of cilantro, now we sell a lot of cilantro.
Yeah.
So there's cool things that happen as a result too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I love that it kind of like all comes full circle back to like the original idea for like such a shitty time for like a good thing to come out of it for everybody. It seems like
it's crazy, man. I guess maybe that's just how life works.
Yeah.
But like, it comes full circle.
Yeah. I love that. All right, so if people are listening to this episode and they've made it all the way to the end, which most people do, where can they go to learn more about Harvest Drop, like website, social handles, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Couple places. There's Instagram, harvest_drop, Harvest Drop. Our website, harvestdrop.com. Those are the two main places to find us. And we're out here in a warehouse in the middle of New Jersey, so nobody really comes to see us.
Right, sure.
So we're going to see everybody else. But those are the two main places.
Awesome. And then like if people are interested in doing like that home delivery thing, are there like things you need to make sure that you do to make sure that you can get those deliveries?
No, there's
as long
nothing,
as you're like within the delivery radius.
As long as you're in the delivery radius, meaning if you're listening from the Garden State, you're good to go. So that's as simple as that. Yeah. And if you're placing your first order, you can use Welcome 20 as a coupon for $20 off.
Awesome.
You're welcome to use that. Otherwise, you're good to go.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you having me in.
Yeah.
Excited to check out the warehouse that has nothing in it.
Nice.
But I appreciate you having me down here, and thanks for doing this.
Awesome, Mike. Yeah, thanks for coming down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome conversation.
Of course, absolutely. So everybody listening, once again, I'll make sure that I put all of Oliver and Harvest Drop's links and handles in the show notes, so go check it out. Place an order, see what they got, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure if you go to a restaurant in New Jersey, odds are there's a good chance that the stuff that you're eating is sourced from him. So this has been the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. Again, we were here in Windsor, New Jersey at Harvest Drop with Oliver Gubenko. Fucked that up at the very end. I'm Mike Ham. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.